In this video, we are going to be looking at how to improve and get better at World of Tanks. I'm going to be taking you through most of the steps that I took to go from being extremely red WN8 when I first started, even around about 10,000 games, I was still probably in the red WN8. And now when I have nearly 30,000 games, I'm at roughly 2,300 WN8, with the recent stats over 1,000 games being around about 3,400, which is not by any means the top end of Super Unicums. In fact, it's pretty much the lower end of Super Unicums, but it is what a lot of people aspire to get to. So I am going to be going through everything that I've done to improve, and hopefully you will improve along the way as well. Now, first things first, I'm going to say something that is going to annoy quite a few people, but I do not think this game is worth playing without a premium account. I'm going to be assuming for the rest of this video that you have a premium account, and that's it. I am sorry for any free-to-play players out there that love being a masochist and love pain and suffering, but without a premium account, I don't think this game is worth playing. I've said it before, if you enjoy playing this game, it's worth it to support the developers and spend a bit of money on getting a premium account. You don't have to buy Watt Plus, but for the price of a little, I think it's like £1 more than Watt Plus each month, you get a 30 days of premium, which in my opinion is worth far more than Watt Plus would ever give you. Premium time is genuinely the only thing that I would recommend people to buy in this game, because you can get tier 8 premiums from the bond store. Sure, they're not as good as the rest of the tanks, but it's still a tier 8 premium that you can then earn credits with. Anyway, now that I've annoyed quite a few people, moving on. First things first, we're going to talk about tank setup, because there are so many people that just set up tanks wrong. Now, I have done a video on a deep dive on the HP boost and how it affects with the field mods and whatnot. If you would like to watch that, it'll be in the link in the description, and everything else that I mentioned will be linked in the video description. But there's also a video where I go through the standard equipment and talk about what you should be using on certain tanks. So that is, it's called the basic series. If you want to watch that and get a little bit more familiar with the equipment, the crew skills, everything else, then go and watch those videos. For the most part, you can get away with HP Turbo Rammer on a lot of tanks. The way that you can tell if you can ditch stab on a tank is by going onto tanks.gg, which is an amazing website. Everything will be linked in the video description. But looking at the dispersion factors here, if the moving, the tank traverse and turret traverse are roughly what the S-Conk is, you can get away without stab, especially this turret traverse one. The turret traverse one is the one that you really want to look out for, because if this is less than, say, 0.11 or 0.12, usually you can get away without stab, because don't forget, you can use a directive in this game, and if you go to the crew, yes, it's going to cost you 10,000 credits a game extra, but you can use snapshot, which is then going to increase that turret traverse section down again. And as you can see here, if we go and select it, we go to the steady hand, it goes all the way down to 0.09. Now, obviously, stabilization is down to personal preference. Some people are going to want to use stab even if the gun handling is quite good, which is fine. It's your prerogative. You can use that as you wish. One thing that I will say is, though, do not remove the rammer. I do not know why everyone has started removing the rammer, but it is dumb. On about 95% of tanks, you should be using a rammer. It's unfortunately just a mandatory equipment choice. The same way, in certain regards, that HP on heavy tanks is a mandatory equipment choice. Every single advantage that you can give yourself, you should be using to be better than the person you are fighting. Which then brings us in to using food on tanks. Food is 2 pieces of vents on your tanks. Yes, it's going to cost you 20,000 credits a game. If you buy it cheap, 10,000 credits a game. I don't bother buying it cheap. I've never had an issue with running out of credits by using food. The thing is, right now we are running credit boosters. As you can see, we get 30% added to random battles. This is just active right now. It's active for the next hour and 40 minutes. There are loads of clans that will go and just use these and just be a booster clan. All of my clans at the moment, both PogU and Kakao, are full, so unfortunately you can't join them. However, there are loads of clans. Like Ixin has a load of clans. I can't think of the top of my head, but there are loads and loads of community clans or credit boosting clans that just run boosters all the time. For us, we run them from about 5 o'clock UK time all the way up until around about 11 o'clock in the evening. But that will help negate any loss that you make from using expensive consumables or even gold ammo. Speaking about gold ammo or premium ammo, as you can no longer actually fire it for gold anymore, as it has been for a very long time now, but still people like to complain about it. If I was to load full gold with a credit booster from the clan and a personal credit booster with my premium account, I would break even. I wouldn't really lose any credits. Maybe I'd lose a bit. Maybe like 100k over, say, 10, 20 games. But if you went 50-50 or something around like this, where it's mostly premium still, but you still have a lot of standard rounds for when you do meet targets that you can pen easily, you're probably going to make credits. Even with food, even with firing some gold. And especially considering that, well, the APCR rounds are just flat out better than the AP rounds, there's no real reason not to go full gold if you have a load of credits and if you want to go for a try-hard session. For me, I roughly choose something like this. I have a little bit of standard rounds just to save a bit of credits for when we do meet targets that I can pen easily, but most of the time I'm going to be firing premium ammo at them because it's just better. Again, we're coming back to that whole situation. Why would you put yourself at a disadvantage against the person you are fighting? Use everything that you have as your advantage over them. Again, this isn't a way to make money or be insanely profitable, but this is how to be better. Another thing that you may realize is that I am using a large repair kit. You don't have to. Honestly, this makes hardly any difference. Maybe 1 in 10 games, you might need a large repair kit to repair 2 pieces of, or 2 modules, sorry. And considering the actual credit difference between the two, it really doesn't add much. If you can't afford to run this, or you don't have loads in the depot, which this is the only thing I buy when there's on a discount. I only buy large repair kits. Everything else, I don't even buy food. I just let food just be bought as and when I need it. I do not buy large med kits because they're kind of a waste, to be completely honest. 99% of the time, you're going to be using that med kit just to remove a stun. So you probably just want to use a small med kit. I mean, as you can see, I don't have any in the depot and I don't even have any on a tank. Everything is all in the small med kits. So either you use a large repair kit, if you've got some in the depot, buy some at discount if you can. Usually I buy around about 1,000 each discount. So that costs around about 10 million. But you don't have to. You can use a small repair kit. So for most people, this type of loadout is just as good as going full gold with a large repair kit. Because as long as you know when it's time to fire gold and when it's not time to fire gold, you're good. And one last thing that I want to mention on the ammunition. They see this number here, see that it's 4,400 and think that this is extremely expensive. This is only really expensive if you miss. If you miss and do 0 damage, then you pay 4,400. If you pen and do damage, you're going to get some of that knocked off. And it'll probably go down to maybe around about 2,000. I don't actually know the mathematics on it, but whatever it is, it's not 4,400 if you do damage. So I wouldn't necessarily try and blind fire with it unless you want to lose a load of credits. But that is one of the reasons why I usually go for a round about this, is that I can then blind fire with standard rounds and not really take so much of a hit. So step 1, setting up your tanks correctly. If you followed those steps, you're at least on to being better than most people. Just because you've set your tank up correctly and you're using all the advantages that you can gain. Then the next thing that I'm going to talk about is people that you can watch to gain knowledge and get better. Now, the number 1 person that I can recommend is Dakillzor, by far. Now, Daki basically streams every single day and has by far the most 10k damage games I've ever seen. He's done 56 this year alone, which is quite impressive considering we're just over halfway through the year. Multiple tanks that he has done over 5,000 average damage, so that's DPG, average damage per game, with marking them as well. This isn't just like play 10 games and get 5k. This is like 100 odd games and get 5k. And even done when the AMX was completely broken, over 6,000 average damage, which I mean, that's like double mine. I'm pretty sure he isn't human and is playing a different game to me. But right now, he is currently on his journey of 100%ing all the reward tanks. He has done, so far, the 279E to 100%, which if we go and have a look at the 279, you'll see down the bottom here, that's around about 6,600 combined. He has also done the Chieftain up to 100%, which right now is at 6,800 combined. And yes, he done them while they're in the unnerfed state, so all the marking requirements are stupidly high. And he has since just done the Caro to 100%, which a lot of people struggle to even get 95 on. It's kind of mental what he does in the game. And I mean, that's just on his main account. If we go on to his second account, which is Roslikad, and we go to his vehicles, you'll see that the VK, 5.2, 279, 5k, 780, 5k, and even these other ones, which he doesn't find impressive, which is like 4.5, 4.3, maybe even 4k for some of them, that's still a lot better than most. But considering that, you know, basically as soon as a tank is decent in his eyes, it becomes 5k. Like, he has 5.1 on a mouse. Nearly 5.2 on a mouse. The thing goes at like 20 kilometers an hour. Like 5k on an E5, 5k, 5.2k on a T57, 5k on an E3. This has 5.6 on his M454. He actually got the 6k on a press account. 5.2 and a 50B. It's very, very mental. Like, just some of these stats, it is insane. But by far, Daki is like the number one person to watch if you want to learn how to do more damage. I have not seen anyone else get as many 10k games or 5,000 plus average damage sessions on tanks and mark them as he has. Now, other content creators that you can learn from, besides Daki, who is just an alien, and this is in no particular order, you have Kaizu, Ixin, Chekefa or Fabian, Skill3 LTU, Warbaby, ScatterW, and Yizna. Now, there are obviously other people that I've missed off. You can let me know your favorite content creator that you learn from in the comments down below. But each one of these people is going to have a different style of play. And that's what's very important to take on board. Just because one person plays one way and it works for them does not mean that it's going to work for you necessarily. For example, Daki loves HP boost. He uses it on pretty much everything. But other people will not use HP because they'll prefer to use something else. So you can then familiarize yourself with that certain content creator and what they choose, and then maybe try and incorporate that into your game. So how do you actually learn from them once you go and watch them though? Well, the main thing that you want to take note of is the positions they go to. Because positioning in this game is worth far more than raw aim skill or anything else really in this game. Even game knowledge sometimes. Getting the correct position to getting that shot off early on, usually if you can get 1,000 damage without receiving any shots in return early game, you're already massively ahead in that kind of damage buffer. It means then that you can start to trade 1-for-1 for some stuff and you're still up on HP. So learning those positions and where they go at the start, and then if they want to move around the map and they say, okay, we need to move here because so-and-so, take a note of it. Take a note of why that's happening, and then you will sometimes be able to correlate that into your games and then learn from that and do that in yours. Also take note of any equipment they're using, as I mentioned, and also field mods for certain tanks. Now, the last thing that I'm going to mention, play the game. It is all well and good you doing all the theory for this, and you know everything, you know all the weak spots for tanks, you know where to go. However, I can guarantee you, as soon as you put it into practice, you will fail. There will be games where you go to the exact same spot that they go to, and you die. There will be games where you think that you've done everything correct, but you die. The biggest thing that will make you a better player is learning from your mistakes. Just with everything in life, you will have to fail a lot to get better at something. Nobody, unless they are born with completely unnatural talent, is going to be a god at whatever they do. And that's just a fact of life. Practice makes perfect, doesn't it? So the more that you play and take on board why it went wrong, Don't just Alt F4 and just forget about it. Try and figure out what went wrong so that you don't make that same mistake again. It may take more than 1 or 2 mistakes for you to finally learn to not do that. It's not going to be like, oh yeah, no, I've made that mistake, I'm never doing it again. It might be that you do the same thing like 5 times in a row, and then you learn that you shouldn't do it. However many times it takes, however much you fail, just try and learn from it. And my final point on all of this and in the game is damage equals or is greater than win rate. Do not focus so much on your win rate in the game. The chances are, over a small session, your win rate, completely meaningless. Over a certain large amount of games, say 100, that is when you should take into consideration your win rate. If you go to do the most damage possible in every single one of your games, you will get a higher win rate. As long as you're not sitting at the back of the map, because that's just very dumb. But if you are on the front line, you're trying to get the most out of the game, you're trying to do your damage, or you're playing your tank correctly, let's say, because not always you're going to be at the front line, but, you know, we move. What I'm trying to say is, as long as you're playing your tank correctly, and you are trying to do the most damage that you possibly can, you should get a higher win rate. Sometimes it is better to be slightly selfish than to try and push a win when it's not a win. I'm not saying go and throw a load of games, okay? That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that those games where you know you're going to lose, try and take a defensive position and farm out as much damage as you can. You may even turn around a complete loss into a win. If you think about it this way, the more damage you do, you are then playing your role effectively. As long as you're not a light tank, and that's a bit different. Damage is what equals wins. If you kill more people, you're going to win. If you're doing 4,000 damage every single game, you're doing your part for your team, and then some. I mean, it's the main reason why Daki has nearly 68% wins at tier 10, which is mental. So I would forget about win rate, because win rate can be mentally taxing when you can go for damage, which is usually within your control. Sometimes there's games that are unwinnable, but there's always damage in every single game. And then, after you have played a long session, say 100 games, you can then look at your win rate. And if that's still very, very low, then the chances are you're not playing completely as aggressive as you should be, or your role completely as you should be. And then you can take into consideration where you can go to improve. But besides that, that is pretty much everything. I know this has been very much like a talking head video, but a lot of people have asked about how to improve. There is no magic kind of flick of a switch, instantly you're improved. It takes time, as with everything. And the main one is learning from mistakes and just trying to put that into practice. Thank you very much for watching. And hopefully I'll see you all in the next video.